I'm Claire Rosamond, and today I wanted to talk with you about a really key intervention in emotionally focused therapy for couples, or EFT, and this is tracking the cycle of distress between partners. So firstly, let's look at why we track the cycle. Initially, I am really transparent with my couples about the process of EFT and that the first part of our therapy involves really understanding where it's going wrong between them emotionally, how they are sending scrambled signals, misunderstanding each other, or just plain frightening each other. I let them know that most couples get caught in a really predictable pattern of conflict where they know how it's going to end up. They know how it's going to go. The steps become really predictable, like a dance, and that this sadly creates distance, not closeness. I start calling this a cycle or a dance right from the first session. And I say that we're going to get to know it and slow it down so that we can understand each person's experience more, that we're going to explore what feels scary or unsettling for each partner when they get caught in the cycle, and we're going to help them exit these stuck places and create a new dance where they feel safe and close and that they have each other's backs. I validate that in this dance or cycle, they're desperately trying to get their message across and their needs met, but just feeling misunderstood and more unhappy. For one partner, the distance between them may feel too huge. For the other partner, the distance may not feel big enough. The result of this is upsetting for both partners. We aim to instill hope about the process of helping them to understand their cycle or dance by breaking it down into the steps and getting to know how they unknowingly trigger each other when attempting to best get their needs met or cope with the distress or disconnection between them. We frame their distress and distance as the sad byproduct of misunderstanding each other and disconnecting when they're in the dance or cycle. This means that neither partner is to blame. They co-created this dance together, and together they can co-create a new one that feels better for them both. We help them to be united as a couple against the dance that has created distance and distress. So now that we've framed their distress as a cycle, next we want to track the cycle step by step. There's a lot going on between two people who love each other but are hurting when they're stuck in a rigid cycle of misattunement. So we need to take this process really slowly. It can be helpful to use a cycle tracking sheet to slow and follow the steps of a couple's negative cycle. You certainly don't have to use a cycle sheet, but it is important to find what feels good for you. If you would like to use a cycle tracking sheet, we have copies of this on our website under Therapist Resources. I don't tend to explicitly fill out this form with my couples or put it on the whiteboard because I find that the process can become a bit of an intellectual exercise and not experiential enough if I do that. But once again, it's important to find what fits with your style as a therapist. Just remember that we know from the process research that the felt emotion in the room each session correlates with clients' positive outcomes. And this model is experiential. So we try to avoid things becoming too intellectual for too long. If my couples are really interested, I do give them a copy of their cycle sheet. And I also find at this stage in the process, it can be really useful to recommend exercises out of Jenny Fitzgerald and Veronica Callis-Lilly's book, an EFT workbook for couples. Here's a photo of the cover. I find this really cements their focus on their cycle and the steps within it while they're at home to work on between sessions. So to track the cycle with a couple, I think it's important to make it really collaborative, as though we're all discovering it together, slowly, one step at a time. I often use questions like, if I was a fly on the wall at your place when things get tense between the two of you, what would I see? Or, how do you know when things are becoming tense or uneasy between you for a less conflictual couple? Or what happens when it all goes wrong between you for a more expressive or escalated couple? At this stage, I'm looking out for what is the initial signal that is triggering for each partner. As Sue Johnson puts it, What is it that sets off sirens and alarms in their attachment system? I want to slow that down and explore what it is in that trigger that is alarming for them. Is it a look on their partner's face that says, I'm not happy with you? Is it a sense that they can't reach their partner and that they're not on their radar? We're looking for door handles into their inner world around what feels scary for them when it all goes wrong with their partner. We're wanting to name and validate the secondary reactive emotions at this stage. So these are the emotions that are expressed on the surface. We want to know what they do when they feel this way, so we can see the secondary reactive behaviours they enter into the cycle. We're looking at feel and do in a skinny cycle initially, and helping each partner to connect with what they do when a feeling of threat is triggered by the other in the dance. We then want to make the link between what they each do and how the other feels. This allows us to make a skinny version of our infinity loop that might look something like this. So, Bill, you're really helping me to understand that when you see that Mary isn't really hearing what you're saying, you feel frustrated. That is upsetting to you, and you get louder and more forceful to get on her radar. But for you, Mary, you sense his frustration, and that sets off sirens and alarms for you of, uh-oh, he's not pleased with me. So you get anxious and pull away. Is that right? We do regular summaries like this to really slowly assemble a clear understanding for us all about the nuances of the secondary reactive parts of the cycle. We might then ask Bill, how is it for you when Mary goes quiet? So that they can begin to see that they trigger each other in the dance, and that when they're triggered, they cannot give each other what they really need to get back into a good place with each other. Make sure that you validate the secondary reactive emotions without expanding them. So in this example, we might say, no wonder you feel frustrated. It makes such sense that you feel that way when you want to connect with Mary and she seems so out of reach. Try to empathize with each partner's distress and highlight that this is distressing because they matter so much to each other. They're doing what they do in the cycle because it's their best attempt to cope and it makes sense to them. But it's just so sad that they end up triggering each other and feeling more and more disconnected. It can be really helpful to turn some of these clear understandings about what triggers each partner into small enactments where we ask people to turn and share with each other. So that might look like, I get frustrated when I can't reach you, or I pull away when you seem so cross with me. This helps partners to send signals about what is triggering for them and is an early step in helping them to turn and share glimpses of their inner worlds with the other in a slightly new way. It's really important when tracking the cycle to try and stay out of content and to look for the broad attachment themes that are emerging for each partner each time they get caught in the cycle, so that we can begin to get an idea of their positions in the cycle. So look out for who generally is the one in the relationship who is protesting the distance, wanting more closeness, or feeling on their own, or feeling unimportant. This might be the more pursuing partner. And who is the one in the relationship who feels that they need to defend themselves? Who gets overwhelmed and wants to put out fires or step back to have space? Who feels that they don't get things right with their partner, or that their partner is impossible to please or unreasonable? This might be the more withdrawing partner. Attachment reframes really help to validate each partner's position in the cycle and to frame this as their best attempt to cope. So here are some useful attachment reframes. Pursuers protest the distance and pursue for closeness. They see closeness as the solution to the relationship distress. Therefore, no matter how strident their pursuit, this is their best attempt to cope with the feeling of distance. They are scared underneath their protest. And the bigger their protest, the more intense their experience of distance in this relationship is likely to have been. Sue Johnson says, think of the blamer as afraid. It helps me to remember that pursuers are desperately seeking closeness and reassurance, that they are safe and loved by their special person. Behind their pursuit is a longing for closeness. Withdrawers see distance as the solution to their relationship distress and want to protect the relationship and themselves from the pain of conflict. They often will express that they're confused and dysregulated by their partner's pursuit and can't think clearly. They are often distressed inside, but keep this to themselves for fear of making things worse. They try to put out fires because they want to minimize damage. So, of course, their best attempt to cope is to try and dampen down the conflict or to become practical or to defend themselves. It helps me to remember that withdrawers withdraw because they're not confident that sharing their emotions with their special person will have a positive outcome, and that they often feel distressed but helpless. And this is likely to have been their experience in their relationship and maybe even growing up. As we explore in this way, we're gradually making a fatter cycle where we're building more of an understanding about each person's interpretation of the other's behavior in their secondary reactive position and allowing each partner to express more about what is really going on for them inside. This wobbles the rigidly held assumptions about the other that form part of the cycle and allows each partner to see the other a little differently. We can then try to draw out what might be the deeper, unexpressed, or more primary emotions and attachment needs and fold these into the cycle as well to complete the picture of their cycle. This takes time and trust. So I think it helps to do lots of cycle summaries and lots of repetition, as well as constant reframing and validating each person's best attempt to cope, to keep a sense of safety in the room and with the process. Gradually, each partner will tolerate you staying with them a little longer and in uncovering another piece of their inner world. This will then allow you to fold this new information into the cycle and hopefully to turn it into an enactment. Enacting new or emerging pieces of the more vulnerable emotions that drive the cycle for each partner is hugely helpful in creating the first key change event in the model, which is de-escalation. In touching these more primary places, even if you know where someone's pain might be coming from because you're a good therapist and good at reading people, you will help the client to have a more powerful experience if you can help them to find their way to that emotion rather than you presenting it to them in a conjecture, even if it's an accurate conjecture. I always remind myself to evoke many times before I conjecture. That said, though, sometimes a partner who's very withdrawn and out of touch with their emotions and feeling stuck and vulnerable and unable to name those deeper feelings might be helped with a gentle, tentative conjecture, such as, if I put myself in your shoes, I imagine I'd be feeling quite lonely. Could that be how it is for you? Think of it as though we're laying a breadcrumb trail with evocative questions, such as, how is it for you to say that? What's happening inside right now? Can we stay with that for a moment? How is that for you right now? Can you tell me more about that? Can you help me understand? What's that like for you to touch that? So that they can find their way to the deeper places in their inner world and put their own words to their experience. This will help the individual to make sense of their inner world and to find the words themselves. And the emotion then will be more alive and embodied. We don't want to fully unpack those primary emotions until stage 2, but we do want to make contact with them, name them, experience them a little, and make sense of how they're driving the cycle. When we ask one partner to turn and share that with their partner in an enactment, it'll then be more felt and more authentic, and therefore more likely to pull for an empathic and understanding response from their partner. After an enactment, we process the new steps they just took by asking, what was that like for them to share, and how was it for their partner to hear? We then highlight how amazing that was and help them to see how different that is compared to what it's like when they are in their cycle. Enactments are such a vital part of this model, and we use them in many ways throughout stage 1 and 2. So we will look at them more in another video. I hope that this has been helpful for you to think about the process of tracking the cycle and working with couples in their stage 1 work of EFT. If you'd like to learn more about the EFT model, please look at our website, aceft.com.au, for more information on books, videos, and training in EFT available around Australia. And thanks for watching.